Hi, I am an artist, and have you ever wanted to paint something, but slowly you realize things are way more complicated than you expected, and then panic? If that's you, then maybe this video will be the thing you need right now. But first, before we actually dive into the complicated stuff, let's start with a simple example like this piece of cake, and we will use this to break down the painting into a step-by-step process. And here is what we will do before step 1, like before we even touch the canvas, which is observe the reference. Yes, take a real good close look at the thing you want to paint. Look at it, stare at it, real close. Like to the point that you may feel a little bit uncomfortable. Note the shapes, the colors, the materials, and I will explain what I mean by material in a second, and also the lighting scenario. So in this case, this is a piece of cheesecake with white and purple cream cheese, a golden crust, and some blueberries on top. And the lighting is coming from the lower right hand corner of the reference. And yes, saying this out loud will make you sound incredibly dumb, but you don't have to do that. You just need to note them down inside your mind. And when you feel confident enough that you understand what the subject is, let's begin the actual first step, sketching. For this step, use whatever sketching method or brush you like, as long as at the end you have a vague idea of where the cake is, how big it is, what type of shape it has, how thick the crust is, and where the blueberries should be. You are good to go. And yes, you heard that right. Only a vague idea. It doesn't need to be precise because we will refine everything later in the process. So yes, something like this is good enough. Next step, color picking. And this is where the material earlier comes in. What do I mean by material? It is anything that has different colors in the reference. Yes, it has nothing to do with the actual material the cake is made out of. As long as they have different colors, they are counted as different materials. For example, this cream cheese part over here, even though they are the same cream cheese, but one part is white, one part is purple, so they are two different materials. And we differentiate them like that in order to make the color picking step easier. For each material, pick at least one or at most 3 colors to represent the material itself. They should have different values, aka how light or dark it is. And I usually pick 2 colors for each material, one light and one dark, so essentially 2 values. So that's the reason why I may use colors or values interchangeably in this video, but they mean the same thing in this context. So in our cheesecake example, we have 4 materials: purple cream cheese, white cream cheese, blueberries, and the crust. And also the table if you want to do some background stuff, which is optional by the way, you don't need to paint it. And then I put the colors in pair like this. As for color accuracy, personally, as long as they are kinda similar and have distinct value from each other, I'm fine with them. But in the case you want to have really accurate colors, you can pick them straight from the reference. As long as you pick one light color and one dark one, you are good to go. The third step is blocking out the big shapes using the colors we just picked earlier. And the goal here is to simplify the painting using the least amount of colors as possible. Hence the reason why we only pick 3 colors at most in the previous step. Any more than that will make us confused really easily. And for this piece, since the main light source was coming from the lower right hand corners, I block the color in accordingly. And the tip for this step would be zooming out on the canvas quite far, like to the point that you can see the whole painting really easily, so that you can keep an eye on how the big picture is looking. And another tip is keeping your brush really big. This will kind of force you into focusing on the big general shapes and not on the small details. And as long as things look harmonious with each other, you are done. Yes, even if it looks really crude and simple like this, but that's all you need at this stage. And the final step is rendering, aka doing the small details. And well, usually at this point, I would feel pretty dejected looking at the simplified version because, it looked like that. Even though I did say that was all we needed at step 3, but well, it's hard not to feel some kind of negative feelings looking at this thing. So in moments like this, I would like to focus on a small part of the painting first and then work my way from there. In this case of the cheesecake, it was the purple cream cheese part. So the main thing I was focused on here was refining the shape and painting the texture, which, to be honest, I myself have not been able to master the texture part very well, especially at this point of painting this cheesecake, which was like a few months ago already. The only technique I knew back then was raw dogging the whole thing, like essentially just copying what I saw in the reference. So because of that, I believe this is a step that we should always go in while praying to your preferred higher being of your preferred religious system. But don't you worry, from this point onward, I have learned quite a lot about texturing, and I think I will share more about them in some future videos, as this one is going to be long, very long. Let's just talk about the raw dogging method for today's video. And here's a few tips for the method. 1. Keeping your brush small so that you can refine the shape easier, and also a ton of tiny brush strokes will make the piece look way more detailed and busier than it actually is. And 2. Keeping an eye on the overview window to see how the whole thing is looking. If some parts stood out way too much from that far away, better just Ctrl-Z that part and redo. And finally, be patient. Listening to something you enjoy, like either it's music or postcard, anything, and just keep painting. Somewhere along the line you will enter autopilot mode, and it will actually be pretty relaxing and calming. And also, if things didn't turn out too well, don't be afraid, just ditch them. This is just a piece of cake, there are plenty more in the sea. And by the way, we can add more colors in this step if necessary. As long as you are being slow and cautious, like only adding one color at a time, we can protect the harmony we have established in the first 3 steps. For example, for the purple cream cheese, I did add another lighter purple, like this one is the lightest one in there and was basically acting as a highlight of the part. So yeah, adding color is totally okay, but be slow with it. So that was how I broke down and did pretty much all my paintings. Hopefully the simple example was easy to understand and follow. I will post the real-time version of this one on my second channel as well, so if you want to follow it in real time, you can. Now it's time to apply what we have learned to the bigger, more complicated painting. And also this one will be available as a wallpaper for March for our monthly wallpaper club, which you can access to by either becoming a member on YouTube or supporting me on Ko-fi. Anyway, that's enough for the self-promo. Let's go over the actual painting. So the step will remain the exact same as before, only this time things were a lot more complicated because there was a lot more things to keep track of than a single piece of cheesecake. But let's not get ahead of ourselves yet. Let's breaking down step by step. Step 0.5. Observe. Check. And this is the visual representation of how my mental notes look for this one. And there's no need to actually write things down like this, but just for the demonstration purpose. And the main thing I was keeping track of was the amount of materials in there, because the shape and the lighting were fortunately very clear in this reference, so no need to waste print power remembering those. Next, sketching. And as you can see, I was spending quite a lot of time sketching this one, which was actually kinda unnecessary. Like I could stop a lot earlier than what I did, but the reason why I spent that much time on this step was because while I really enjoyed the color and the lighting of the reference, I didn't really enjoy the composition. So I decided to change the position of things up a little bit, and it mainly was the position of the cup of coffee and also like the size of the plate. So I wanted to make sure that things look okay. That's the reason why I spent some extra time planning things out in the sketching step. And once everything looked good to my eyes, I moved on to step 2. Color picking, which was again quite complicated simply because there was a lot more than just one object in the painting. Like we have the dessert, the plate, the table, the coffee, and the fork. So there was 3 materials for the dessert, which was the raspberries, the biscuit, and the cream. I picked 3 different reds for the raspberries, light, medium, and dark, because there was quite a lot of them. Blocking the shape for something like this with just 2 values can be a little bit too difficult. 3 will make my life a lot easier. And then we have 2 materials for the plate, the white plate and the green pattern on top, which is some creative liberty I did because the original pattern was a lot. Like there was multiple greens and then also yellow, like too much, cut them down. Then the table was counted as 1 material. The coffee was 2 materials, which was the coffee liquid and the foam. The fault was also two materials, like the metal part and the wooden handle. As you can see, there was quite a lot of colors to keep track of, so I tried my best to reuse some of the colors. Like for the foam of the coffee, I used the same pair of color from the cream of the desert, so on and so forth. After picking colors and organizing them in some way, I started to block out all the main shape using the colors we just picked. And normally I just kept the palette right on top of the canvas because usually it's just a row of colors. But this time it's obviously not the case. Keeping them on the canvas will be way too cluttered, so I decided to export the PNG file out and re-import them into Krita as a reference file, and keeping them on the side like this. And also, as you can see here, the colors I picked was actually not very accurate. Well, frankly, they were way off compared to the reference. But since the values themselves were pretty good, so overall, everything was looking okay, like harmonious and looking like they belonged to the same world. And that's all we need. So trust me when I say color accuracy isn't that big of the deal. As long as your values are good, everything will be okay. And finally, render time. So after getting over how sad it looked and how overwhelmingly many things I needed to paint, it's time to suck it up and actually start painting. And as I said previously, at times like this, just pick one part of the painting and start from there. The question was, what part should we pick? And the general answer to that is usually the main focal point of the painting. Or where do you want the audience eye to look at first? Like for the cheesecake, it was the purple cream cheese part. And for this painting, it was a clump of raspberries over here. And as you can see, raspberry is something that has a lot of bumps arranged in a pretty neat pattern like this. And trying to paint every single bump on one raspberry, time it like by 7, is the quickest way for you to descend into madness. So here's a way to do it without painting every single one of the bumps. And that is focusing on the silhouette and the transitional areas. You can think about it like this. We begin with a blob of two colors, and it looks pretty smooth just like this. So how can we make it less smooth? First, we make the silhouette pumpy, and then we also make the transition from light value to dark value bumpy. And then adding a few little shapes around that transitional line, and then adding some highlight in the light area, and bam, you got a pretty convincing raspberry with relatively little effort. So essentially, it's like you go from the big general shapes, refining them into more detailed ones, and gradually breaking them down into smaller and smaller shapes. And this also applies to pretty much anything, not just the raspberries. Like I did the same thing for the patterns on the plate as well, going from the big blobs and slowly refine and adding more details to them. And of course, telling you how to do it is easy, but actually doing it in practice is hard. And luckily for something like the raspberries, we had a lot of chances here. So one tip here is you can practice with the ones that were further away, like the not as important ones. As long as this one in the forefront look good, it will conceal all the mistakes you made on the rest of them. Like think about it like a queen or something. If the queen looks pretty, people will think everyone behind her will also at least look very decent. And this logic also applies on the big picture level as well. As long as the main focal point of the painting looks good, everything else can afford to look a little bit sloppier. And that's the reason why I usually start from the main focal point of the painting. Like painting that one most important part when we have the most patience and energies is the best way to guarantee that part will turn out to be good. And then after that, we can afford to, slack off a little because everything else doesn't have to be too detailed. Only need to look somewhat decent. And you can totally see how the quality of the rendering started to kinda drop off once I finished the main dessert. Like looking at the second plate, the cup of coffee and the fork closely, you will see it is kinda a bunch of loose brush strokes, but zooming out it looks good enough. So it's fine to be sloppy, which maybe I shouldn't say like that because it may sound like I didn't put as much effort into the painting as I should, but it's the truth. When you are dealing with bigger and more complicated scenes, you have to learn how to spend your energy wisely so that you won't give up halfway. Well, anyway, I still want to talk about some other texturing method, but this is getting long, like really long. So maybe I will make another video just about texturing in the future. For today's video though, the most important takeaways is the step-by-step method to break down a complicated and detailed scenes, which is first observing the objects closely, and then sketching to understand the size and the position of them, then color picking based on materials, and then blocking using big brush while zooming out to focus on the big shapes. Finally, rendering details by refining and breaking the big shapes down into small ones. That's the gist of the videos. You can forget about everything else, but please remember this workflow. Anyway, with that, let's check out how the painting looks, shall we? So that's what to do when you are overwhelmed with details. Please remember the steps, and hopefully that's what have fun. As a reminder, this is a Match wallpaper, and again, you can have it by supporting me on Ko-fi or becoming a YouTube member. Anyway, that's the video. Hope you have a great day/night ahead, and see you later.